Good morning from sunny South Africa, and welcome to our session this morning, in which we have an esteemed panelists from a number of leading companies, both local and multinationals, as we hear insights, deliberations, discussions on their investment journeys as they partner with local companies to optimize their investments and use the different instruments of government to be able to optimize their journeys within the country. We are really joined by an esteemed panelists from different companies that are going to be sharing their insights, their experiences, their knowledge with yourselves. And we welcome you to this discussion, to this engagement. And we really want you to think about South Africa, think opportunity. With that, I would like to introduce you to a panel that's going to be led by Polo, Leteka, who is a leading entrepreneur and also has a number of wealth of experience, both in the public and private sector, in the area of shared value, in the area of transformation, in the area of empowerment, and is going to be using this opportunity to have this conversation to be able to share these insights so that when you're thinking South Africa and thinking opportunity, you are also thinking partnerships. I now hand over to Polo to be able to take you through this particular engagement and discussion. Over to you, Polo.
Great. Good morning, Rashmi, and good morning to my fellow panelists as well as our guests who have joined us this morning. It is indeed a beautiful sunny day here in South Africa. We are quite excited, of course, to to be part of the Dubai Expo, and we are quite excited to be having this conversation around developing indigenous African industrialists through partnerships with international firms. I will first start by formally introducing my business and my background and just provide some context to how we as South Africa have gone about to to be quite intentional in developing local businesses so that we are able to grow our economy, we're able to include as many people as possible into the economic mainstream, and really just touch on some of the practical examples of how we've gone about to do that. We're very excited to have Standard Bank joining us, Coca-Cola joining us, as well as Microsoft, who will also have an opportunity later on to share with us their journey of transformation, their journey of helping to support the development and growth of indigenous businesses in South Africa, and how they've integrated them into their supply chains, and how they have used the legislative instruments and tools to help support their own shared value story, because we all agree that shared value is important in today's world, where we need to make sure that both corporate and communities actually benefit from the economic opportunities that are available within the areas that they operate in. So by way of background, when South Africa got its freedom and we got our democracy in 1994, the government was quite intentional in ensuring that we mainstream previously, what we refer to as previously disadvantaged South Africans who were, on the periphery of the economic, activity. They were not, they were deliberately excluded. And it was important that as a government, we came up with legislation and a legislative framework that would enable the inclusion of the majority of South Africans that were not economically included in the mainstream of our economy. So the purpose really around the BBB legislation, which stands for Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment, was really to close those gaps that existed, because there was a view, and we still have the view, that if you have a population that is excluded economically, it could create some other challenges and problems that we may have experienced in the past. What is important, though, about this piece of legislation is that it was always intended to be based on proper economic principles, which then means that whatever we implement in the pursuance of the objectives of the legislation would need to lead, should not lead to any false economy or should not lead to any unintended negative consequences. Oh, apparently my camera is off. Let me just do that. Apologies. Can you see me now? So, so that was really the purpose of the policy, to ensure that it works within normal commercial within normal commercial principles, so that the initiatives are actually sustainable in the long term. And I think this is very, very important. So it was about inclusion, but it was also about sustainability and economic growth and development. South Africa is said to have one of the highest unemployment levels in the world. We have got the highest Gini coefficient, which means that there's a lot of work that needs to be done intentionally to ensure that we close those gaps, we reduce the levels of unemployment, we create jobs, we grow our economy. And through this BBB legislation, we had a number of levers that we looked at. We looked at ownership. So how do we increase the level of ownership of your previously disadvantaged people, ownership of assets, ownership of capital, ownership of business in the economy? How do we look at human resource development? How do we build our intellectual capability as a country? So within the codes of good practice under this legislation, we have aspects that talk about employment equity. We have aspects that talk about skills development, again, to ensure that all social partners are intentional in helping to build our intellectual capital as a country, because it is important, as we know, again, in this day and age where things like technology are disrupting every sector of the economy. Our intellectual capital capability becomes that much more important. We also looked at aspects around how do we, if we are serious about increasing the level of ownership of previously disadvantaged people in this country, how do we intentionally come up with initiatives that are going to support the creation, the development, and the growth of these businesses through what we call enterprise and supplier development? And again, I think today we're going to hear quite a lot about what the multinationals that have joined us today have been doing within the context of enterprise and supplier development. And as a result of these policies, we have seen an increase in the number of businesses that are owned by indigenous Africans in South Africa. The mining sector alone boasts to have created more than 10 multimillionaires. Some of them are actually billionaires. Today, we have seen a number of transactions taking place in the financial services sector, where again, a number of multimillionaires and billionaires have been created. We have also seen the increase in the number of the Black middle class, which again is good for any economy, for economic stability, for socioeconomic stability and growth. We have also seen quite a number of businesses actually being started and being supported quite intentionally by various players in the economy. So there are a lot of good stories that we can tell about what we've been able to achieve with the BBB legislation. And despite all of that, we still remain with the levels of inequality. We still remain with the high levels of unemployment that I made reference to earlier. So it means that there is an urgent need really for us to start scaling up some of these initiatives that have yielded some of the good results that I've made reference to. I often, use myself as a very practical example of what you can achieve. When I left my job with the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition many years ago, I was fortunate enough to be incubated by one of the large mining companies, Anglo-American, through their Enterprise and Supply Development Initiative, where they helped me to refine the business concept at the time, the business idea at the time that I had, which was to establish a financial services firm that was focused on backing Black-owned and Black women-owned early stage businesses and later on technology businesses. We have been able to, over the past 14 years, raise funding from enterprise and supply development, corporate contributions, as well as institutional investors, and have in turn deployed money, almost R1 billion over that period of time, into more than 300 early stage businesses, and more than 50% of those businesses are Black women-owned businesses. We've been able to create businesses that are actually now expanding across the African continent, and some are even looking to expand into other parts of the rest of the world beyond the African continent. And these are the things that we can achieve if we are intentional about deploying capital and resources towards initiatives that are meant to build local businesses that can scale beyond the African continent. And I think these businesses are the ones that we can use as examples of how you can partner successfully with big corporate, with multinationals, to create institutional businesses or large businesses. I mean, our business alone has already expanded across the African continent. We are the largest female-owned fund management firm in the country, again, as a result of this policy of BBBE, and in particular the ESG component of it. So I think, having said that, it becomes clear that if we do it well, if we do it with the intention of being sustainable, if we do it with the intention of not just helping the establishment of these businesses, but actually their growth, exponential growth, hopefully in the process, we can create our own unicorns, like other parts of the world are developing. So I think that's really the importance of this legislation. That's the importance of doing it well. That's the importance of the ESG initiatives that our colleagues from the multinationals are going to share with us today. So with those opening remarks, I would like to invite Siyabonga from Microsoft. Siyabonga, if you could please just share with us your own journey as Microsoft around BBBE, how you've located it within shared value as a principle, how you look at it from the perspective of ESG as a company, what you have been able to achieve, how you've been able to support entrepreneurs, and I suppose to the extent that you've worked with government in helping you navigate this journey, if you can share with us some of the practical things that you have gotten help on in terms of how to implement the government policy, and how that has helped you to get the success that Microsoft boasts today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Polo. Thank you for the opportunity. I think the best way to put it is, as Microsoft being a global multinational company, our approach was really to, and this is the approach I think that we take all around the world, is really to see how best can we customize and localize Microsoft as a company so that it talks to specific national objectives of that particular country. So the BBBE legislation became quite pivotal for us. What we did, we took the National Development Plan, which is South Africa's economic blueprint until 2030, and we realized that there are three main issues that the National Development Plan has focused on. It's called the triple challenge of inequality, poverty, and unemployment. And we thought to ourselves, as a local company, as a multinational that is localizing itself, how best can we help and work with government to try and resolve some of those triple challenges? It was quite clear to us that as a single company, we can't stretch ourselves across all three, and that it would be important in order to have impact to just focus on one of those key triple challenges. And we went with the challenge of working with government in relation to unemployment. So everything that we do in country right now really relates to how do we work with government to help solve the challenge of unemployment, especially in as far as this challenge is affecting young South Africans. So I think there's two main programs that we've developed. The first one, we call it the Black Emerging Partner Program. And really what this really tries to do is, in South Africa, Microsoft has got more than 6,000 partners. And when I'm talking about partners, I'm talking about companies that on a daily basis would transact on a Microsoft product. So these would typically be companies, big IT companies like Dimension Data, First Tech. These will be big mobile operators like Vodacom, MTN. This will be big telco providers like Telkom and Liquid Telecoms. So all of these companies are part of what we call our Microsoft Partner Network. We've got more than 6,000 of them in the country. But what became quite clear to us was that as big as that partner network is, it does not always necessarily reflect the demographics that we have in our country. And that as Microsoft, we needed to be deliberate in ensuring that we infuse into that partner network SME organizations, especially women-led SME organizations, so that they play quite a big part in making sure that on a daily basis we have Black companies that are transacting on Microsoft products. So the Emerging Black Partner Program was primarily designed to ensure that we invest, we are deliberate in spending money on these kind of companies. Typically, to become a Microsoft partner, you have to have some sort of a competency certification. This typically starts off at a silver level, being your entry level competency, and all the way up to gold, and all the way up to what we call LSPs, which are large software providers, companies like Dimension Data. So the intention was to ensure that the investment firstly would go into financing and funding the skills that are required by these SMMEs to then become silver partners. But we also wanted to make sure that we don't just end it at a level of funding the competency or the training, but to ensure that we create access to markets for these companies, so that once they are Microsoft certified, then they are in a position to be able to go to the market and sell our products. Again, typically, in order to move from being a Microsoft Silver partner to become a Gold partner, you must have at least deployed about 4,000 seats in either with the government institution or with a private company. And typically, this will be a bottleneck for a lot of SME companies, because you would have the normal chicken and egg situation where most companies will say, before you can come in and deploy in my environment, show me the experience that you have. And most SME companies typically don't have that experience. So part of the access market funding that we're doing is to ensure that we literally pay for these companies to actually deploy the seats that they need to get to 4,000. So instead of the customer themselves being the ones that are paying, Microsoft does the investment to make sure that they get to 4,000 seats. We now have more than 100 of these companies that have gone through this program. This program has been in place for at least 2 years now. A few of them have already turned Gold partners. And as a Gold partner, what typically happens is that we then manage you, we get into a partner management program where even more investments are made to make sure that you progress to become a medium-sized business. So that's one part of what we're doing from a triple BE perspective. The other big part of what we're doing is what we call an equity equivalent investment program. You'd know that in South Africa, one of the minimum requirements is that a company operating in South Africa must at least be owned 25% by people from historically disadvantaged backgrounds. Microsoft, unfortunately, is a global company, could not sell 25% of its business in South Africa. But what we then committed to do would be to invest an equivalent amount to that 25% going up to local businesses to ensure that we discharge of the regulatory and legal obligation in as far as the BBBE is concerned. We started this program more than 10 years ago, and I think the intention when we started this was to really go deep. So we picked 8 companies that we worked with. These were typically SME companies, and again, the intention was to develop them to become medium-sized businesses. I'm quite proud to say that at least out of those 8 companies, more than 4 of them have now products that they are selling globally, and not just in South Africa. So they've moved leaps and bounds to get themselves into global positions from a marketing and from a sales perspective. And when we had to renew the program with DTI about 2 years ago, this time around, instead of going deep, we also decided to do breadth as well. So make sure that we spread the pie to as many companies as possible. So we now work with various institutions and partners that ensure that we touch quite a significantly more number of these partners. So we now have partners that are in mining sector. We now have partners that are in agriculture. So we work very closely with DTI on rolling this program out, but we also work very much on the skills area as well. We work with a company called YES, which stands for Youth Employment Services. We've invested heavily in ensuring that from a skills perspective, young people are identified, they are trained, but not just trained for training's sake, but they're trained for particular demand of certain skills in the market, so that once they qualify with whatever training that they were doing, they are immediately transferred into permanent job positions. Again, it's quite a successful program. We've had more than 8,000 young people that are now permanently qualified coming out of the program that we ran specifically as Microsoft. We're looking at even bigger numbers now that we're working with Yes for Youth. So that's part of where the investment has been for us. So I think in contributing, and I'm closing here, I think in contributing to this particular slot around working with government on unemployment, we have really decided to look at skills. We've decided to look at training. We've decided to look at working with SMME companies, but we've decided to go deep in some instances to make sure that where deep skills are required for these companies to grow, that they have the necessary support. But we've also looked at the fact that we need breadth in South Africa. The level of unemployment is so high that if you just go deep without looking at breadth as well, the impact is that much more minimal. So we're going breadth as well. Hence, we're working with institutions like YES to make sure that we touch as many people as possible. So that's the journey I think we've been on for the past decade in South Africa, and happy to introduce a little bit more detail a little bit later on.
Sia, thank you very much for that detailed sharing of what it is that you have been able to do within the context of the BBB legislation. And I think you touch on some of the objectives around, for instance, deepening our skills base, because I think as we attract international businesses into South Africa, it becomes important for them to know that there are nationwide initiatives to build and strengthen and deepen our intellectual capability, our intellectual capital as a country. So I think that's really very good. And I think, you know, interestingly, the program that you referred to, the Emerging Partners program, has yielded quite a number of businesses that are starting to become medium-sized and hopefully will become large soon. And in fact, I'm quite excited to share with you that one of those companies we have funded subsequently to your guys supporting them. And interestingly, we have introduced them to Standard Bank, and I know that they are working with Standard Bank today. So it just shows you the power of how the ecosystem comes together. So something that you initiated enabled us as a VC player to see an investment case in the business that we were then able to invest in, and subsequently were then able to help them navigate their path into Standard Bank, which also is here today. And I think it is important for us to just reflect on what we are able to achieve with this piece of legislation, because without the initial work that Microsoft had done, the business would not have existed for us to be able to invest in, and they would not have been able to get into a large corporate such as a Standard Bank if they did not have the capacity and the grading, because they are now a gold as well. So thank you very much, Sia, for sharing that with us. Rentia, would you please come through as well to share with us the Standard Bank journey, what it is that you have implemented at Standard Bank from a BBB perspective, you know, how you've impacted on businesses, and how you've worked with both government and any other partner for that matter in pursuing some of the objectives as espoused in this piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thanks, Polo. It's Rentia. Thank you for the opportunity. I will just focus more specifically around our participation in working with government around PPP models and the success that we've experienced in terms of a shared value proposition and what we've achieved. I think the absolute critical end goal for all of us is to make sure that we embrace the spirit of inclusion and economic growth. What we've seen in South Africa more lately has been a lot of challenges around our power supply. And one of the good examples where government and private sectors work together in terms of developing new opportunities and also embracing, the focus towards renewable energy has been the Renewable Energy IPP program. And I just want to use this as an example and then maybe hand over to Moses to go into a more broader discussion around what Standard Bank is doing. So very, very high level. Government launched this program in 2011. It was clearly defined in a way that it supported economic growth through the inclusion of not only community participation, but also Black industry participation. And we've developed very successfully a number of Black entrepreneurs by including them in this program. So the way it worked is the RFP very clearly anticipate and clearly define the level of participation in order to be able to bid a project into this program. To date, there's more than 5,000 megawatts already operational, mainly solar PV and wind. We've seen an investment of 210 billion Rand already in this sector, with majority owned by local participation. So I think that is a massive milestone for us. We know that South Africa currently experiences a lot of challenges around its power generation. And I think we've recently seen a new bidding round where government clearly defined an increase in localization in terms of the thresholds, as well as Black participation, including female participation. And I think the important thing that we see in these projects is that there's significant competition in terms of acquiring these preferred bidder status, oversubscription of about 5 to 6 times in terms of the megawatts that is available. And the funding institutions are extremely competitive in terms of securing participation in the program. What we've seen is tariffs dropping by at least 10 to 20% over the last year, with still more being seen going forward. So for me, as a South African, this is extremely important to create that environment with government for private sector to be able to participate, but also ensure that you do not only support projects and participants at the generation level, but actually follow through to the value chain development. So what we've seen is that in all these projects, you have to look at localization and how you embrace the participation of local companies in participating in all the levels of the ecosystem. And I think that is exactly where Standard Bank play an important role, because we do not only look at the large-scale generation projects, which is mainly focusing through our corporate and investment banking proposition, but also through commercial companies, SMEs, and our retail banking branch. So very important for us is to ensure that these type of inclusions and participation of different levels of companies in this broader value proposition. As Standard Bank, I think the PPP model that we've been very involved in with government has been a great success. And I think at the moment, we just see more and more international companies looking at partnerships with local companies in terms of embracing the future of our generation capacity. I don't know, can I maybe hand over to Moses to give us a bit more of a detailed share of what we do as Standard Bank more broadly? Thanks.
Thanks, Rentia. I think before Moses comes in, I think what you've just shared is so important, because the issue of power has become almost our Achilles heel, if you will, in South Africa. So it's good to hear that there's again a very deliberate effort to try and find solutions to the energy challenges that we face as a country. Would you say that with the work that you've been doing within the PPP with government, you would be a good port of call for any international partners that are looking to find local indigenous businesses that they can partner with in terms of issues around energy solutions?
Absolutely, Polo. I think the role that we play, and which I alluded to, is not only that of financing, which is the main business of Standard Bank, but also linking up local businesses with these type of opportunities. And the value chain is extremely critical. We cannot only claim success on bringing new generation projects to the fore with international investors. The value proposition for local companies is certainly along these value chains. So absolutely, we're open to business, we're keen to partner, and we've got a whole host of international partnerships looking for local companies to join them.
Thanks, Rentia. And I think the importance of this is that Standard Bank is the largest bank on the African continent. So if international partners are aware that as they come into country and look for partners, and the largest bank is there to back the projects financially, I think that gives some comfort around the sustainability of these initiatives and hopefully their investment into those initiatives as well. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Moses, would you like to come in here and share with us a little bit more around some of the other initiatives that Standard Bank is busy with?
Thank you, Polo. We wanted to actually zone in on one Rentia had already illustrated. I think that illustrates really the way we drive transformation. But we can flip back and look at what we're doing, where we do locate some of these initiatives. So you could actually look at our transformation strategy backed by our value statement that says Africa is our home, we drive the growth. And you've already said that, if not the biggest, one of the biggest banks in the continent. And therefore, you also locate our transformation journey within our, what we call the C strategy, which is social, economic, and environmental strategy. This is done through our C value drivers, and we can look at things like education, financial inclusion, job creation, and infrastructure. And Rentia has just given an example of what do we do around the infrastructure. So our whole approach really is to look at how do we transform ourselves internally, which is transforming ourselves internally in order to become transformative in our approach through transformation. We've also brought our partners in this enterprise and supply development, beneficiaries that I'll talk to you later, just to illustrate our approach in terms of supporting these enterprises. But safe to say also, you've already touched on other areas such as our ownership deal that we did some time back that has just run off to do, which was broad-based and created a lot of value. We also do venture into internally, looking at how do we drive mindset change through driving inclusion and supporting our staff in terms of talent development, but also dipping into externally, how do we support unemployed young people in terms of absorbing skills. And finally, to say that we do drive transformation through the core of our business, which is funding and lending. Thanks, Polo. I'll leave it here.
Thank you very much, Moses. And we'll get back into some detail around that, because it is important that an organization as large as yourselves looks African, because it's in Africa and it provides solutions that Africa is in need of. And I think that story needs to be told more and more, because we don't hear enough of these stories. So thank you very much for that. Noscalo from Coca-Cola, please come through as well and share with us, Coca-Cola being a multinational, and you've been in South Africa and Africa for a very long time. I'm aware of some of the work that your organization has done with the Mintirov Foundation and various other initiatives around supplier development. Would you take us through your journey as Coca-Cola around, what that has entailed? What programs have you, initiated? What have you been able to achieve? How has your relationship with government assisted, and how have you interpreted, for your own purposes as a multinational entity, what this BBBE is, again, within the context of shared value principles as well as ESG? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Polo, for the invitation to join you this morning. I'm really excited to share our journey, which began in 2016 around transformation. I would like to let on what Moses said, where he said we needed to be transformed before we can transform everything else. Our business is currently has almost 48% women in leadership, and we drive gender equity quite strongly. So, and our MD is very, very committed to making sure that the business looks exactly how South African looks. And it hasn't been a difficult thing to achieve. It's really been a part of the fabric of the business. And secondly, as much as the Director for Corporate Affairs, I'm responsible for transformation, I don't own the KPI. The KPI is actually spread across the entire board of directors. So each director has a responsibility to make sure that each element is achieved and it's excelled where possible. So that whole political will or the buy-in within the business has allowed us to move many, many milestones in this journey. I'm also proud to say that we are now a level 1 BEE contributor. And we would not have done that with our social partners, without our employees, and absolutely the support of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. So as I've mentioned, our journey started back in 2016, where it aligned with the major conditions that we were given by government. So as much as we have met and exceeded all the major conditions, there were numerous programs parallel to the major conditions that allowed us to accelerate the transformation agenda. One of them is what we call the 5x20, where we looked at 5 million women that we wanted to work with and empower by 2020. So last year, December 2020, I'm proud to report to you and share with you that we exceeded the target, and we have approached or at least empowered over 5 million women on entrepreneurship, on skills development, as well as mentorship and business coaching. Over and above that, you mentioned the Mentiro Foundation. The Mentiro Foundation, we were requested to support the growth in the agricultural value chain, and we were asked to spend 400 million. We've met and exceeded the target and established over 26 farmers who are employing over 2,000 people. 43% of them are women. So for us, women and youth economic inclusion is the essence of who we are and what we are all about. If it doesn't benefit women, if it doesn't benefit young people, go back to the drawing board and review it. That has been the essence of our approach. And secondly, from the preferential procurement over the last 3 years, we have spent over 7.8 billion on preferential procurement alone. So over and above the external projects that we're doing, Black companies, women-owned companies in our value chain have been supported quite deliberately. So the procurement department works very closely with my department to make sure that not only do you give the companies financial support, but there's enterprise development, there's coaching, there's support, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, environment is also a very critical element. As a beverages company, we worry about waste. We worry about the containers that we issue out in the market. So we have a very steep target of collecting 100% of our bottles that we issue out in the market back into recycling. So our target is 100% by 2025. We are standing at 75%, and we're really going out quite aggressively. And we're looking forward to working further with government to make sure that that is possible. And also various people along the value chain, such as the waste claimers, the recyclers, etc. And part of that development is to develop women-owned recycling firms so that we also support the green economy. You mentioned Ikageng. Ikageng is an opportunity for us as employees in the business to be shareholders. And right now there is 15% ownership by employees in Coca-Cola. And that we have also a 5% ownership by external Black people in the business. So making a total of 20% Black ownership of CCBSA in South Africa currently. We are not stopping now because the projects have been, the targets have been achieved, the projects have been completed. What we've been working on this year is a huge overhaul of the existing programs so that we develop what we call youth and women economic inclusion strategy. And we are looking to anchor this not just in South Africa, but across the continent. We are part of 13 markets that belong to CCBA, which is Coca-Cola Beverages Africa. And we share experiences, we learn best practices, we learn learnings from other markets such as Kenya, such as Ghana, etc. And we want to make sure that what works in Kenya, we can also import, or at least import into South Africa and learn about it. So at the end of the day, when you experience Coca-Cola, wherever you are in the continent, the experience is the same. So in conclusion, it's been a very ambitious journey, but was heavily encouraged by the support of the DTIC. I mean, Minister Patel has been working very, very closely with us, and I'm proud to mention that part of the new conditions is the localization fund, where we've committed 280 million over the next 3 years. And localization is very, very important, and he's very passionate about it. We are driving that quite aggressively. So if you look at all the different pillars, what we're doing within the BBB scorecard, the various projects that we are doing across the value chain, but also what we're doing with the environment. Maybe let me just add before I conclude. Over and above the collection and the recycling of our plastic bottles, we are also doing quite a lot in as far as water replenishment. Annually, we replenish over 1 billion liters of water. So for every liter of Coke of water that we spend producing 1 liter of Coke, we want to replenish. In our operations, we want to replenish. And the replenishment is not just to recycle the water, but it's to make sure that the water gets provided to communities where they are water stressed. We have numerous projects in the Eastern Cape, in Polokwane, where there's a lot of water stressed communities where we bring back water, and we use our tankers. So I'm sure you've seen our tankers to distribute water, working closely with municipalities around the Eastern Cape and Limpopo as well. So from an environmental perspective, what we work on making sure that waste collection targets are achieved. We are replenishing water, and also around carbonization because of the trucks that we have on our roads. So when it comes to the support of SMMEs, we are not limited to individuals that are in our value chain. We really go across the board, because at the end of the day, as Microsoft has mentioned, supporting the NDP is critical for our economy. So I'm proud to tell you that joining me this morning is the MD of the Kevali Chemicals, who's one of our beneficiaries. And I'm really looking forward to listening to him share his story about how we've worked together. Thank you so much, Polo. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Nosicelo, for that rich story as well. And I think that as a multinational, we are talking to an international audience today. And I would like to invite all the three of you, as we talk to the businesses that you have supported, how do we make a commercial case for this work that we are saying we're so proud to be doing in conjunction with government? I was asked this question last week by some people to say, what is the commercial case for BBBEE? Are you doing it to tick boxes? Or can you say that now that we have backed Kivali as an example, this is what it means for our business, this is what it means for our bottom line, and this is the approach we took in supporting them so that it benefits them, but it also benefits us as a business, so that we can start having real case studies of what has worked and what we can learn from, that people can copy and paste, as it were. Can I perhaps maybe use this opportunity then, Nosicelo, to ask that you invite Kaveli to speak, and I'll invite the other companies from Standard Bank and Microsoft as well to speak after you. And I'm happy for you to even drive the type of questions or rather the type of conversation that you would like them to have, just so that we can demonstrate this commercial case around why you do what you do.
Thank you, Polo. Before I invite Kevali Chemicals, I'm very excited about the question you've posed about the commercial case. And I really look forward to further conversations and how we answer that question broadly. But what I can share with you is the sustainability of our business during COVID was a typical example of how well we survived not just the pandemic, but how we're able to have the right culture that allowed us to be resilient and be able to produce the results, not just for the business, but for our communities, as well as our social partners, as well as other partners in the value chain. I think if it wasn't for that culture, where our success is so clearly intertwined with the communities in South Africa, we would not have been where we are. That is our story, that is our journey, and it's something that I look forward to engaging with you further, as well as other professionals. So Bongo Musa, I'm not gonna ask you questions. I think you have a very amazing and powerful story to tell. Please come through and share with us your journey with us. And also please use this opportunity to give us further insight of what more we can do in this region. Thank you so much. Bongo Musa, over to you.
Bongo Musa, I'm just going to ask that maybe you try and keep it to about 3 to 5 minutes if you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I think listening to the previous speakers talking about journey that has been held over transformation. I think for us as a small company started by a group of 5 friends who came from opposite ends of the spectrum, others being customers to suppliers, the other group being suppliers to customers. It found a convergence of what a great thing that can be developed when you understand what happens on both sides of the spectrum. And it's an irony that as well in this platform, there's 2 major contributors to our journey so far. Starting off back in 2014, looking into this journey of creating an organization called Kevali Chemicals that focused on the supply of detergents for hygiene and sanitation to the FMCG sector, or secondly, supplying labeling adhesives or packaging adhesives to the industry, or supplying water treatment chemicals for potable and industrial water, and or finding innovative technologies to provide a total solution to the industry to achieve our sustainability goals. And we had that as a strategy to start off. So the 2 critical partners that have been part of this journey for us, number 1, has been the DTIC, as well in partnership with the IDC, that provided us the capital to establish this dream and to be able to design and build a manufacturing capability that's fully Black owned, that could supply all this portfolio that I'm speaking about. I think the second major contributor is the CBSA, who saw in us a dream and saw an opportunity around how can we partner to exactly answer this question that you are talking about, around what value that's going to come out through the partnership. I think so far in the 7 years, I've seen a win-win situation for us as a company, and I think for CBSA as an organization. They've provided us with an opportunity to provide them with these products or services or solutions. They've given us as a company coaching, mentoring to grow and compete with international suppliers that they use across the world. And which means therefore that we have local competency and capability that they can utilize to further their own strategies to improve their efficiency in their operations and to grow the country at large. So what has been the outcome for it? We have grown as a company with them, with CBSA as an end customer. We are now replicating. We've replicated what we've learned to other beverage companies, to the food and beverage sector, to the going to the mining sector, to all other sectors that in the past we never thought we could do. And they've challenged us. It's not about just do this immaterial of your quality or your professionalism. They've challenged us. So we've grown as an organization in terms of competency and capability. We've learned around how can we compete against the global suppliers that have got all the resources versus us starting out as 5 people with only 8, in total 8 employees, and in the period you've grown to about 80 employees now, distributed across the whole country and starting to export into Africa. So for me, that is growth. And I think what has been the third thing is that we have learned that just like they are paying it forward to us as an organization, we need to be mindful and very choiceful that we also pay it forward, because that's how, as a country, we're gonna grow. We take interns as well, so that you can make them understand what the chemical industry is all about, which is we got the experience from corporate. Now we need to pay it forward to students and school learners to be inspired in terms of chemistry. We have grown people that had nothing to become operators. We also have grown small organizations, a one-man organization that wanted to go and supply transport, that wanted to go and supply security. How can we also do the same and pass forward what we have learned? So as you can see, it's about creating a network of value from the lowest player to the biggest player, from a community to a multinational to the global world. And I think maybe wrapping it up, also what's working with a big organization like Coca-Cola, Nostelo touched on the water issue. One of our fundamental principles, in fact, our payoff line is saying chemicals for life. So it's around how can we have good chemicals that do not contaminate the earth that we live in? How can we come up with technologies that save the water that is used in operations? How can we come up with solutions that improve the consumption of electricity, that improves the efficiency of organizations, such that net, our customer makes a savings and we make a revenue. And the whole infrastructure or the whole world, per se, or the human community is not negatively affected by the chemicals that we use. I think that's the journey that's happened. And we are proud to be part of it. And we're learning every day. We are learning every day.
Thank you so very much, Bongusa, because I think for me, what you have just demonstrated is almost the flywheel effect that we've all wanted BE to be. Triple BE was always meant to have a flywheel effect. If you unlock this lever, and it leads to the unlocking of another lever, and so the wheel goes until automatically we are empowering each other, we are sharing the value. And I think what you've also demonstrated is that it was not just a feel-good initiative on the part of Coke, in that, you know, they had this legislative requirement to meet, but it sounds to me like it has been a real partnership of business partners where they have seen value, they have seen efficiencies in their business, and on the other hand, you've been able to to learn and grow, acquire the necessary technical know-how and experience, and expand yourselves beyond just having Coke as a primary client to actually having a multitude of clients, which is now also enabling you to go international. And for me, that is a real indigenous business that is a global player, that is properly integrated into global supply chains. And I think these are the type of stories that we need to again start surfacing so that people understand that BBBE is really about sustainable businesses that can compete globally. So thank you very much for sharing your story with me. I'm going to invite Lucas, who's one of the Microsoft beneficiaries, to perhaps in a similar fashion to what Bongi Musa has done, to also share with us their journey with Microsoft and how they've seen their business grow from when they started with them. Over to you, Lucas.
Hey, good morning to everyone, and it's a pleasure to join, and hope everyone is doing well. So from just taking over from and just sharing and around the points of having engagements that are not necessarily compliance-based, but that has material impact, not only to us as a business, but to just driving a single entity's focus in addressing value. Our engagement with Microsoft has been one that has empowered us to establish a Pan-African cybersecurity and risk company. We've been in this journey for the past 3.5 years, of which in the FY20, we became the new and emerging partner of the year. And not only that, but the runner-up in a security partner of the year competency, which was testament to a relationship that not only provided a platform for us to showcase capability, but one that has empowered us as a business to drive our vision, where it was really, a business that was developed to have an impact within the socioeconomic state of our country. For the past 7 years, we've been running our own internship program, trying to introduce the youth to the domain that is cyber security. And the engagement with Microsoft just accelerated it from a point of having just about 15 within 4 years. We've been able to add 45, right? Some are across different organizations, but us as a business, we then became a critical enabler with Microsoft, driving the whole digitization story, but more so enabling trust and confidence, impact of which, again, we concluded this financial year with Microsoft being, for the second time in a row, a runner-up, competing against multinationals, not only within the South African context, engagements going abroad through the EMEA sphere and domains. And for us, what is so much valuable is that a dream was converted to a practical platform that has now today enabling dreams. We have 85% of our employees moving from mere 4 people to 20, of which 85 is young Black women, who tomorrow there'll be mothers that can contribute to our society, as we know the social ills, right? I myself, I'm a child of a single mom, so there's that touch to it where I'm pushing my own dreams, but now I'm in a partnership that enhances beyond just an individual, one that also showcases excellence. And our drive has, of today, really empowered the concept of a partnership that delivers value, a partnership that is able to stretch beyond just compliance, beyond just the monetary engagements, but to have a socialistic value impact, and one that develops cross collaboration as a business with Microsoft, because they're more partner driven. We found ourselves expanding into territories that we thought it will take the next 20 years. If I were to categorize the customers that we've been able to engage, we're talking about custodians of critical infrastructure, critical services, be it in health, in finances, IP sensitive information, which is more critical in the 4IR industry. So this journey has really enabled us, the partnership with Microsoft, to really accelerate. In 3.5 years, we find ourselves really competing with local multinational IT or technology partners, having a bedrock where we can engage with Microsoft, and the engagements are now holistic in relation to looking at a business that grows, that expands, that's scalable. I mean, the pandemic came through and we were one of the fortunate ones where, because of the nature of the business that we are in, we're able to expand, grow business. And beyond us growing as a business, we enabled other organizations, other partners that we have, where we introduce them to the Emerging Partner Program. Others have found themselves depending on their own developments, but when they got to now join the same platforms that we are running with in terms of the partnership with Microsoft, they expanded. I mean, we have close to about 7 close Black small partners that we work with, and none of them shut down doors, and not because of us as Paramo Tech, but leveraging the platform that Microsoft has enabled. So yeah, that's really our story, and one that is gradually growing. Hopefully the next time we have this, we will be able to share about us having leveraged the lessons with Microsoft and impacting further that, you know, this, it's not just a, you know, BEE conversation from the terms of compliance, but the one that draws economic participation, growth, delivery of value at the end of the day, where people of our color can showcase capability and showcase that excellence. So I'll just like to really end it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucas. I mean, for me, the type of partnership that you have with the Microsoft, again, demonstrates that it makes business sense to partner with local, because you are their hands and feet on the ground. So they work through you, whilst you know, a multinational that is looking to come into South Africa and not be happy with the idea of doing BE deals or supporting BE initiatives. If one were to take away the head of BE from it and just look at it purely commercially, it makes a huge amount of sense for you to have people on the ground deploying your service and your product on your behalf, because they understand the market. They can better get to your target clients than you would if you were to come in as just a multinational without any kind of local partners and relationships on the ground. So for me, I think that is an important point to highlight and surface, to say that these partnerships that we are having under the guise of BBBE actually make business sense. They make us agile as multinationals on the ground, because our partners understand the markets that we're trying to penetrate. So thank you very much for sharing that with us, Lucas. I'm going to invite Xolani and Lerato in that order, who are beneficiaries of Standard Bank. And gentlemen, if you also could try and keep it between 3 and 5 minutes, because I'd really just like us to come together collectively as a team to then talk about what message do you want to convey to those multinationals that are interested in coming into the South African economy. Over to you, Xolani, and then Lerato afterwards. Is Xolani still with us? He is, according to this.
Yes.
Yes, he's on mute.
Yeah. Thank you. I was
Please
on
go
mute.
ahead. Yeah, please do share with us your story. Thanks.
Right. Thank you so much. And I'm excited to be part of this program. To maybe give context, one needs to reflect on how or when Advanotech was started and the role that Standard Bank has played in our growth to date. So Advanotech started in 2018 as a systems integration business, focusing purely on the IoT and the rest of the technology ecosystem. When we started, it was a one-man business. You know, I come from a very strong corporate background, and at the point I had reached a time in my life where I wanted to actually contribute to the better South Africa that I wanted to see. And I believed I could achieve that by starting a young business that would assist in dealing with some of the socioeconomic issues that faced our country. One of the fundamental challenges that I believe is faced by most of, if not all, SMMEs in South Africa is perpetually the issue of funding. Now, when we started the business in 2018, we were fortunate enough by early 2019 to have a couple of contracts that were ready for us to be able to deliver on. We have attracted customer appetite because of the uniqueness of our technology offerings. You know, one of our biggest drivers from an IoT perspective is our capability to cross-integrate across all systems in your environment, digitize your system, and give customers a single view of their entire operation, you know, without ripping and replacing any systems within your environment. Excited customers, we had appetite, but we quickly realized that to deliver on these orders that were sitting on our pipeline, we needed capital. We were partnering with multinational organizations that said, listen, as a young company, we are going to give you the trust, we're going to give you the opportunity, but we're not going to fund the opportunity. So you need to capitalize, deliver on the project, and then we pay you. And we found ourselves stuck, needing a strong partner or someone who's progressive, because here's the reality. As a Black person in South Africa, by virtue of my history, I don't have a strong balance sheet. I don't have collateral that I can put in front of a financed institution for them to hold on to as they extend banking facilities to me as an individual, let alone a young business that was started in 2018. It led to a very unique introduction into the Standard Bank ecosystem, where I positioned our company's value proposition, you know, holistically, what we offer, the kind of customers that we've been able to attract, and importantly, what is it that we wanted to achieve as a company in 5 years. So I was able to articulate to Standard Bank the vision of the organization. I was able to articulate to Standard Bank my background as what they call a jockey in their environment. And lo and behold, in that one moment, the bank decided to not be conventional about how they went about extending banking facility to a startup in South Africa. They decided to focus on the strength of the jockey. I guess given my almost 20 years in the corporate, they decided to focus on the strength of the opportunities that were in front of us. I mean, I had opportunities at the time with the likes of Vodacom, IoT.next, and other companies that had given Advanotech trust, and we were looking to deploy our technology across various sectors of private sector and government, but I did not have funding. So in that moment when Standard Bank shifted the paradigm, where instead of being conventional, I mean, and it's also important, Polo, that I had started knocking at other funding institutions to say to them, here is a strong vision. Here is an opportunities that we have in front of us that are locked. You know, we're ready to deliver. And all of them, except the Standard Bank meeting, had said, cannot do, we need a balance sheet, or you need to show us some form of collateral that we can use to hold on to as we advance you this funding. When the relationship with Standard Bank started early 2019, because of the shift of the paradigm, because of the out-of-the-box type of approach, we actually coined, call it a statement of relationship, where we said the bank is moving away from conventional banking to backing a jockey, right? Which was very unconventional for a bank. Fast forward, Advanotech today supported purely from the support of the bank and its customers that are growing on a month-to-month basis. Advanotech employs about 30 young people across 5 provinces of South Africa. The bulk of the 30 young people employed as a deliberate strategy are young people who were unemployed grads at the time that we onboarded them into Advanotech. We've got, like I said, presence in 5 provinces now, and we have a customer book that is in excess of 40 customers that we service on a month-to-month basis. So we've seen a very strong growth of a business, giving us the capability, number one, to deliver to our customers by virtue of the funding facilities that we're able to get from Standard Bank, but importantly, giving us an opportunity to build an asset of value. We have gone to a point today where we've done an acquisition of our own as a young business, something that I'm very proud of, but I'm clear that it would have not been possible had I not been introduced at the time to a bank that was willing to be agile in their approach, but importantly understand the intensity of the socioeconomic dynamics that face South Africa, their commitment as a bank to the government of South Africa in as far as supporting, upcoming entrepreneurs in the country, supporting the narrative of Black economic empowerment. That for me was a revolutionary opportunity that has today seen a growth of a tech company that, if for all intents and purposes, started by one gentleman who just had a vision and a strong corporate background that has created jobs. If you use a multiple of 3, we've got plus 30 people working for us today, by virtue of their responsibility to at least 3 or 4 people. You can immediately understand the impact of Standard Bank in the wider community that we service as Advanotech, but most particularly in the families that today are benefiting as a result of Advanotech having grown through COVID-19 to what it is today.
Thank you very much, Xolani. I think for me, that's a story again of shared value. It's a story of what the element of enterprise and supplier development, which is what I imagine you would have benefited from in terms of the funding that you got from Standard Bank. So what enterprise development in this particular instance has done for people like yourself who would not have been able to raise capital from traditional financiers is that it has unlocked the funding that is required for us to grow our economy. And I think it is important to, again, just underline the fact that through this legislation, we've been able to unlock this kind of resource and capability and capital so that we can support our objectives of growing businesses, creating jobs, and closing the economic divide. So thank you very much for that, Xolani. Lerato, please come through as well. Xolani did miserably with his 5 minutes, so I'm hoping that you will help him to catch up by sticking to 3 minutes if possible. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm excited to be invited here. For me to give you the context of how LWM debt recovery started, in 2008, I found myself in a very bad position where there were debt collectors knocking at our door, and the way they came, they were not in a way a person would appreciate to be approached. Now, since then, I said to myself, no, these big companies, the way they're approaching our people is not all right. Then we decided to do tracing and debt collection, but while doing it, teaching people how much you work your credit and whatsoever. Now we tried to go, we had different clients from different banks, but would not get any access to finance or the market. Because of when you go to different banks, they tell you that, okay, what experience we have. And then if you have zero experience, they're not able to help you. But fast forward everything because of time. We worked with different banks. We tried to get home loans for our business. They would say no, just like that, because of obviously our cash flow was not that okay. But when we introduced to Standard Bank did something which it was so surprising for us, because of not only helping us to achieve our goals, they came in as partners. They said, you know what, you want to have a home loan, this is what we'll do. We'll give you 10%, put in 10% so that you can buy the property. That was a surprise. I was like, okay. Then they still approved it from themselves to make sure that we grew. Then when we moved to our offices, they still helped us to get the new licenses, which are very expensive for a small business. They paid for it. They made sure that we are aligned with the technology of today. While we're at the home loan issue, they come back and say, no, there is a technology here for tracing and making sure that you are able to find your clients faster. But that technology as well was expensive. Standard Bank still came back and say, come in, we'll help you out to get that, to achieve that. Now, when we started being with Standard Bank, we had only about 20 people. From then to now, we are 56. Now, for me, when I look at Standard Bank, the way they approach and they make sure that you grow, and then they're putting their weight on it. They're not just saying, no, this is a BE something, but what they say, they put their money on it. Because of lack of time, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lerato. I appreciate you saving some time for us. But I think for me, what you've just highlighted now is the support side of it. So yes, you got some financial assistance, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs are in such desperate need of the non-financial aspects of how to grow their businesses. And I'm happy to hear you again highlighting the importance of this enterprise and supplier development component of the BBB legislation, where we encourage both financing as well as non-financial support so that businesses can grow. The introduction of technology in your business, I'm sure, was an important game changer for you and has enabled you to become the business that you are today. So thank you so very much for that. I'm going to invite our three panelists now, and thank you all for sharing your entrepreneurial journeys and stories of how these multinationals have helped you to walk the journey and how you are now successful as a result of those interventions. And importantly, demonstrating for our guests the impact that the BBB legislation has had in terms of creating indigenous businesses and building industrialists that can participate across value chains, both across the African continent as well as in other parts of the world. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to invite Sia back to say, Sia, having listened to all the input that we have received today, and being mindful that we are really trying to demystify for companies that are interested in coming to South Africa, what this whole BBB legislation means and how it works. Do you want to maybe touch on the point that I made earlier around the commercial case from your perspective as Microsoft? What is the commercial case of doing BBB as a multinational? Thank you.
Thank you, Polo. I think one of the things I think we're most proud of is about 2 years ago, we became the first multinational in the ICT space to invest and roll out what we call hyperscale data centers in South Africa. At the time, IDC did an independent study which spoke to the fact that the investment would lead over a 5-year period to creation of 120 jobs, with 52,000 of those jobs coming directly from the Microsoft partner ecosystem. And that talks to the impact that even just following a pure commercial model, you are able to make in a country. And we're quite deliberate in terms of who are we creating spaces and openings for as we make those investments. I think where we are now, being a cloud platform company, I think the best way of commercializing what we're doing is, one, making sure that we create, or at least we've created a business that enables other businesses to thrive. It gives a platform to other businesses to set themselves up as companies that can provide not just local services, but international services as well. Because you'll remember, we now, we are part of a global economy. And when we use technology to solve societal problems, we do so not just for the local markets, but for global markets as well. And I think by making the investments that we're making on SMMEs, I think the commercial case we're making is that we're developing indigenous talent, creating a platform for that talent to thrive and have visibility and exposure at global markets. The likes of Pakamo, for instance, who we're speaking as beneficiaries, are already on that trajectory. I can point to a few. There's a Ria Via bus company, for instance, in South Africa. The app that uses that bus company uses to direct buses and allow people to book and know the times of travel and all of that. That's developed by a company that is a Microsoft beneficiary. They're using a platform that is a Microsoft platform. And those are apps and innovation that we're able to replicate and solve problems elsewhere in the world. So I guess what I'm saying, I think the best way to commercialize B is not to see it as a tick box exercise, but to see it as an opportunity to partner with indigenous SME companies, use your platform to ensure that you enable them to become global citizens and global players. And I think it's a journey that's gone very well so far. But I think it can even get better. It talks to ensuring that we're not monopolizing IP as a global company, but that we're partnering to ensure that IP is extended to local companies that on their own right then make their own efforts to become global companies. So I think that's the best story you can tell around how do you commercialize this, so that it's not a legislative requirement, but it's a way of doing business, and a very good way of doing business.
Thank you very much, Sia, for that, for making the case, the commercial case, for a transformative approach to doing business, shared value. If you know, in our culture, we say, what is the word? Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, meaning a person is because of other people. And for me, that's a clear demonstration of how, when you help one, you in turn ultimately benefit, and you benefit a community as opposed to an individual or just one corporation. So thank you very much for sharing that. Rentia and Moses, from your perspective as an indigenous South African business that is now a multinational, what is the commercial case for taking this approach to business in terms of what you do around transformation? What do you do around supporting the creation and growth of upcoming businesses? What is your commercial rationale for it?
If I may start, Polo, I think that the story of growth that is inclusive has been well illustrated, from triple Ps that Russia has talked about to, you know, small companies that literally have benefited in terms of the partnerships that we've had. So that's a great story that really shows that we can grow together. And as the economy grows, we grow. And also to say that we should not be shy to illustrate the support that government has. Because with the support of government, we're able to, I wanted to say de-risk, but perhaps is to manage the risk, you know, that is associated with lending. And Tlorani has literally illustrated so well in terms of the demands from small businesses in terms of collateral and, you know, the financial backing that you need in order to access finance. So access to finance is actually very difficult, but, you know, through a partnership, we're able to literally accelerate the access to finance to the broader population. But also, let us not be shy to say that we actually are gaining out of de-risking our capital in terms of getting government support, where you know, people do not have collateral, such as they've got programs such as FLISP, you know, in affordable housing, to make sure that they actually provide that type of support. And therefore, this partnership becomes critical in order to make sure that we all the economy and enables us to play our role as a financial institution as well. Thank you. Rentia?
Thanks very much for that. I just want to test something though. How do we scale this, Moses? Despite all of the stuff that all three of you have shared with us, which is very commendable, by the way, and despite some of the stats that I quoted earlier around the growth of the middle class, the creation of Black-owned businesses and all of that, we still remain a country with the highest unemployment rate. We still remain a country with the worst Gini coefficient. And one is inclined to say, well, if you're doing such great things, why are we not scaling it so that we can close the gaps? What needs to be true for us to be able to scale what we're doing?
I'm not sure if I'm going to give a direct answer, but I think part of it is also through the awareness and education about what is required in doing business and the understanding and knowledge around running a business. So financial consumer education is quite critical. Awareness of what you do and how you do these things also becomes critical. Plus, making sure that once you have a milestone covered, try and make sure that you do have a whole lot of other people that can expand what you do through further connections. So create a web that can literally help people to come closer to what you do and how do you. So the suspicion as an example of how financial institutions lend to people, and the fact that people don't want to necessarily go to banks and financial institutions to borrow money, that myth needs to be debunked, and the awareness can really help us a lot.
Creating an ecosystem that enables this scale. Note that you were quite excited when I posed the question around what is the commercial case, but maybe help us understand what your commercial case is as Coke, and in your opinion, how do we massify, how do we scale a Mintiro Foundation? How do we scale all the other initiatives that you're doing so that we can actually start closing these gaps that continue to bedevil us as a country?
Thank you, Polo. Yes, I was excited because at the end of the day, we need to start digging deeper and start peeling the onion about the things that we need to do to address exactly the issue of unemployment in our country. But to go back to the issue of commercialization, I think from our side, how we've been able to do this is being able to demonstrate our sustainability as a business. Meaning, through transformation, we are the employees who are shareholders in the business. So being a shareholder, you act differently than being an employee. You are able, discussions around postponing bonuses, discussions around doing some innovations around shift work become easy conversations, because what that allows us to do is to ensure that if we, for example, postpone bonuses and don't pay bonuses, it allows all of us to keep our jobs. From a preferential procurement point of view, our customers are our suppliers and our our ED beneficiaries. From a Mintiro Foundation, for example, we use a lot of sugar in our products, as you may appreciate. The farmers that we have worked with are our suppliers of sugar. And instead of us importing sugar and paying import duties, we're actually sustaining a sugar cane industry that has received a lot of challenges over the years. So through the Sugar Master Plan, we're actually helping not just us as Coca-Cola, but we are part of a community that is helping sustain that entire value chain. So for me, the commercial case is demonstrable sustainability that allows for agility in the decision making, that allows for cost savings, that allows as well for business for business continuity. In terms of how we scale it up, I still believe we haven't explored entrepreneurship into its full length or full glory or full potential for our country. I come from a generation where you have to go to school, go to university, and then go somewhere and knock for a job. There's so many opportunities that can be leveraged outside of that value chain or outside of that linear process. There are so many solutions that, there's so many problems in our communities that require solutions. And there's so many people who see these problems and who have ideas of solving these problems, have solutions to solve these problems. But now let's start tapping into that brain power to say, instead of looking for a job to solve that problem, how do we empower you, create a solution to solve a particular problem? For me, one of the most effective things we can do is be very deliberate about how we promote entrepreneurship in our country, instead of just following that route that we followed in my generation. I think I speak for most of us on the call in terms of the age, where you had to go to school, go to university, go to college, and then go knock somewhere for a job. Entrepreneurship, stimulate it at a young level, go into schools and encourage entrepreneurship at a young age, so that at the end of the day, when people are looking for careers, for opportunities, they are outside of formal employment, for lack of a better word. Thank you, Polo.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all the panelists and the entrepreneurs that joined us today. We have run out of time, but I would like to make a few observations that South Africa is open for business. South Africa is a country under construction. South Africa is a country that is working in partnership with government, civil society, the private sector, to find solutions to grow our economy. We have demonstrated today that the private sector, in partnership with government, has implemented initiatives that are meant to enable the creation of indigenous businesses that can become partners to international businesses that seek to make investment in South Africa. But importantly, we have created businesses that are globally competitive through the support that has been provided through the ESD component of the BBBE legislation. Whilst we have made progress, there's still a lot of room for us to make an even bigger impact. And we believe that the more investors we can attract into our country, into this economy, we can certainly drive much greater economic growth. We can drive much greater inclusion, and embracing fully the principles of shared value. We believe that it will be a win-win for all participants. Thank you very much, everyone. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of this expo throughout the day and the coming days. Take care.
Thank you, Polo. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Great session.
Thank you.